Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, founder of Alzheimer Speaks, which is a advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture around the world from crisis to comfort. We believe that by joining forces and sharing just everyday knowledge and having everyday conversations about life with dementia, that we're going to be able to remove the stigmas attached to memory loss that just stifle so many people, not just those diagnosed, but also those that are caring for them. And together, I think by having these conversations, we can help everyone understand what the true needs are, and we can discover new tools, and we can get rid of the myths, again, that just create this massive fear and isolation that people feel when they're dealing with this disease. I know that collaboration is just key in terms of making a difference, and we're really kind of one of those grassroots efforts out there, just trying to engage people in conversation. And I know that we're having a great effect because we were honored by ShareCare and Dr. Oz as being the #1 influencer online for Alzheimer's disease, and that is because of all of our listeners and all of our followers. So I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your participation, your activism in terms of making a difference. Your likes, your shares, your tweets have a profound impact, and a lot of times we don't realize how big of an impact we're having because we're touching people we don't even know. Sometimes it's just opening that door by sharing an episode of this show, or maybe it's something on the blog or in our resource directory, or one of the dementia chats where I interview people that actually have dementia. So many people don't have the conversation, and they will feel more comfortable if they see more information about it. So reach out and share. If you haven't liked us or shared us or tweeted us, I recommend that you not only share our show here on Blog Talk Radio, but go to alzheimerspeaks.com, and there's lots of different platforms that we have there. We've got information on the memory cafes as well. We've got a mentorship program around the world that can help people find out information on how they get set up, to provide additional support. And again, it's not just about what we're doing. These are global efforts. So by no means do I think I have all the answers. Today's show is going to be quite fun, and we are going to be talking with a couple of ladies today that are doing some very unique and fun things. And I want to invite you all to be part of that conversation. And you can do so by calling in live, and the number is 714-364-4757. Again, if you didn't have your pen and paper handy, that number is 714-364-4757. Or, normally you can use our chat box, but I have to be honest, today I'm having a little bit of a problem with my chat box initiating. So we're gonna see. I'm gonna try it one more time here. And I'll continue to try through the show, but it looks like they've done some upgrades here, and I might have to upload some new software, which I wasn't aware of, and I don't want to do that during the broadcast. So calling in live will be the best way to get a hold of us today. I also always like to give a shout out to some organizations that I feel really strongly about, and some projects out there just to highlight. And so I'm going to take some time to do that right now. Alzheimer's Disease International is not known by a lot of people, but they are the organization of all the Alzheimer's associations around the world. And they are doing profound work. They were part of the G8 Summit, and I believe Mark Wortman, we're looking at having him scheduled on the 28th of this month to come and tell us what was it like about all the nations getting together to create a plan. He's going to talk about their conference coming up in May and what's on the agenda for that. Also, there's a new study on nutrition that he's going to talk about, and then keeping people active in the workplace. So that should be a very fun show. The Purple Angel Project, which Norms McNamara started, I'm one of the ambassadors for that. That is the new global symbol for dementia. If you are interested in becoming part of that, there is no cost to that. Please reach out to me. You can shoot me an email at Lori, Lori, at alzheimersspeaks.com, or you could contact me through the radio show as well. It's probably easiest, though, if you go to our home page with the main website. There's a big contact button there, and that's probably the easiest route to catch me. And again, that's just www.alzheimersspeaks.com, both words plural. Also want to give a shout out to the Lewy Body Association, the Frontal Temporal Degeneration Organization, the National Aphasia Association, and the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, which really takes a holistic approach. All of these are doing wonderful work, and they would love to share their knowledge with you as well. A lot of times people don't know that when they are in the midst of this disease, and there's so many different types of dementia, that there are specific organizations for all of them, and it's good to be able to connect with those specifics as well. The Alzheimer's studies, you can go there to find out about a clinical trial. They're in their third clinical trial for tau and still taking applicants for that. Just go to www.alzheimersstudies.com, or you can go visit the Alzheimer's team on Facebook. And then Music First, I just adore them. Puzzle with Me, Jiminy Wicket are all great ways to interact socially. Choral Health with Music First, of course, is music. Puzzle with Me has developed a great puzzle, good size. Pictures are appropriate, and then Jiminy Wicket is about engaging intergenerations playing croquet together, which is really a very, very neat concept. So I just want to thank them all for their work, because it's critical to all of us in terms of making things better. I want to introduce our first guest today, who is Rae-Lynn Ziegler, and she is an occupational therapist and certified in sensory integration, which a lot of people don't really know what that is, and so we're going to have her talk about that a little bit so that we've got a good feel for what that means. who experienced first the challenging disease of AD with her mother, and has provided long distance caregiving and visits at regular intervals at the same time raising two children. So she's really kind of been in the thick of things, understands this disease probably from a lot of different angles. And she's done all this while wanting to remain lovely and connected in her relationships. And so she became the author of the book, Let's Look Together. And it is used when she sat side by side when visiting her mother. And she's going to explain how this book kind of came about and how powerful it is and how all of us can use it, not just professionals but families as well. She is her specialty is really in the neurological rehabilitation area with a special interest in cognitive challenges, and she has really been prompted to create this out-of-the-box solution to unique situations. She also, Rae-Lynn, also is available for speaking engagements as well, and I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation that we have with her today. She's done a lot of research and study with this, and I think some of the things that she's going to tell us are really going to surprise you as an audience. I know they did me, because it's opposed to some of the things that we think we should be doing. So, Rae-Lynn, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good morning. Fine, thank you. Thanks for all the work that you're doing.
Well, I'm glad you're here. We've got, I'm up in Minnesota, and it is colder than the dickens up here. We've got like 50 below windshield, and I'm hoping it's not going to interfere with my internet, because that's the platform I use for the Blog Talk Radio here. But you never know. So I've got my fingers crossed. The sun is shining, and everything is looking good so far. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's not as cold down here in North Carolina as it is up in Minnesota, but it's pretty darn cold.
Well, good. Well, I wanted you to give us a little insight. I think first, let's start out with this sensory integration. Can you tell us what do you mean by that? Because I think that'll help give us a little base before we jump into things, what that's all about when it comes to occupational therapy.
Sure. Sensory integration is a term that refers to a theory of learning that was first developed by an occupational therapist in the mid-'60s. And it refers to how we learn as human beings. And if you have children, if you can remember back to when they were infants, they were absorbing things in their world in ways that we probably both recognized and didn't recognize, because we didn't have the tools to have a vocabulary to put on things. But we all know about sound or listening, our visual or vision system, tasting or the gustatory system, touching or the tactile system. And then the two other words that I know that most people probably wouldn't have thought of when they were raising their kids was that we have a proprioceptive system and a vestibular system. And all of these sensory mechanisms work together to allow us to move, to allow us to talk, to allow us to form ideas in our head and then talk about them. And to allow us to feel safe in this world. We don't think of, I don't know how many of you saw the movie Gravity that was out with
Sandra Bullock?
Sandra Bullock, yes, and George Clooney. But it shows these astronauts out in space without gravity. And if we didn't have gravity grounding us to the earth, I don't know how many of us think about, how that would feel. So the vestibular system and the proprioceptive system are ones that aren't as recognized but are very powerful sensory mechanisms. And the vestibular system is in the inner ear and allows us to be able to be balanced and to be able to feel gravity as we move. And the proprioceptive system is in our muscles and our tendons and our joints and allows us to know how our body parts are moving without realizing that we're really engaging them. So it's all at a subconscious level that all of these sensory mechanisms sort of come together and allow us to be the human beings and adaptable as we are. And so in Alzheimer's, what's happening is that the brain cells aren't connecting as well, and they are regressing over time, so that the impact of each of these sensory organs and modalities lessens. It's still working, but it lessens. And so as the caregivers, we need to be aware that we need to use those senses and capitalize on them more than we might normally otherwise. Is that helpful?
I think that helps a lot in terms of what all your focus is in specialty. Let's talk about your book, Let's Look Together. Can you tell us, why did you feel the passion to get this book written? Because, writing any type of book, putting anything like that together takes a tremendous amount of time and energy. And, most people talk about doing it, but most don't do it just for that reason. And so I'm just curious with you, what was your drive?
Well, when you introduced me, I think that you said that I lived long distance from my parents, and I was raising my two kids, and my parents lived in Ohio, and I live here in North Carolina. And so I had promised myself and my parents that when I moved and as they aged, that I would, we've got jet airplanes, we've got good freeway systems, and so I would come to see them, and because it was hard to leave my parents as they were starting to age and have things happen to them. But as you know, you have to do what you have to do, and so anyway, I would go visit my mother and father, and I would spend probably about 4 days of quality time with both of them. And as my mother continued to progress with the disease, she became less able to express what she was thinking. And so I'm sure as the listening audience knows all too well that whether you're at a cocktail party or whether you're with a person that has Alzheimer's and dementia, at times we're at a loss for words for knowing how do I engage this person. And I am a fairly vocal person, and my mother was too. But that ability to sit down next to each other and have a normal conversation started to get lost, and it made me feel very helpless because we always had been able to talk very easily together. So I think because I would go there and stay for the extended period of time that I did, it capitalized, it magnified the fact that, wow, what am I going to do while I'm here with my mom? And I know that most of us have been told along the way when we're dealing with a person who has Alzheimer's or dementia that, family photographs, pick them out of the box and show them to your loved one and, talk about memories from the July 4th picnic or Christmas that year or the beautiful cake that you remember Mom making. And in the end, what I have found is that if you show a person a picture and nothing is forthcoming because they can't remember the name of the loved one or the event, it ends up, I think that it can, in the end, allow the person or have the person feeling possibly that, oh my gosh, I don't know what their name is. And then in response, we try to engage them and say, well, don't you remember that was Aunt Susan? And blah, 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 blah. And in the end, I don't know who ends up feeling positive about that interaction, that exchange that just occurred, because there's nothing you're going to do that's really going to be able to elicit that memory if the brain is not able to bring it up. So it's an expectation that they'll look at this picture of this family member and they'll remember, and then when they don't, it can be devastating to both people. So being an occupational therapist, the cornerstone of the profession is using activity to be the tool or to be the bridge to whatever disconnect there is going on, whether it's from a neuromuscular standpoint or a cognitive standpoint. And so I wanted to get my mother a Christmas present one year and just didn't quite know what to get her, and went out to the store, to the typical bookstores, knowing that my mom has always loved books and that books would bring us sitting side by side. So I went to the store to see if I could find some books that had just photographs in it. And there was really nothing out there that allowed me to feel professionally and personally that it would sort of provide the springboard, the opportunity for automatic kind of conversation. So there was a need, and so I filled the need by creating this book that has pictures of photographs of children in it of different ages, participating in different events, special events, participating in different things or experiences that capitalize on sensations, all of them that I mentioned, the taste and the touch and even movement. And then I also drew upon the basic emotions that we all have as human beings that are imperative in our day-to-day expression of how we're feeling. So anything from anger to joy. So I've tried to capture those three main categories in the faces and the pictures within the book. And something that I learned as I used the book that I had created originally for my mother was that how important it was that none of the pictures were my children or my family, so that my mother wasn't going to be right or wrong. And in the end, it saved me and allowed me to feel that I wouldn't necessarily be sad because she couldn't recall who it was. So I was prompted by a friend of mine to publish the book, and I thought, oh my goodness, no, I can't do that. And Lori, never having done a book before, but you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it was a lot of work, even though the book is very simple in what it has to do and what I've written in it. It has been a dedication of passion, and I knew that there was nothing out there. And I did go to the Alzheimer's Association here in North Carolina, so that I was open to the resources that they knew that I certainly didn't. And so it's just one of those things you sort of feel compelled to give back. That's basically how I ended up creating it. And the book basically allowed my mother and I to have, in the moment, failure-free conversation that allowed us to remain connected emotionally. Even if we looked at it say at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and she would take a nap and get up, we could pull out the book and look at it again, and she wouldn't remember that we had looked at it an hour before, and we'd have fresh conversation all over again. And sometimes she would just laugh at the pictures, which was therapeutic all by itself.
I want to jump in and just make a couple of comments to what you're talking about, because I think you've made some critical points that most of us go through family photos, and it's a testing of the memory. And even if that's not our intent, is to just have conversation for someone who's struggling with memory issues, that's how it's perceived. Anyways, that's what they tell me, and I'm sure that you've seen that as well. So I think that it's key here in this instance, and again, it's going to depend on, exactly where they are in the progression of the disease. But when it gets to that point where there's no recollection or very little, and to use those non-family pictures, because there is no right or wrong. You're in this together. You're all equal, and having a conversation versus any, there's no ability for misinterpretation. With what's the goal here? Is it I'm testing you, or is it that I just really want to reminisce about this end? I don't really care about the details, but when I have a conversation, those things don't really get discussed and talked about. And so I think that, this is a very, very different and unique look at what we've been told to do. Richard Taylor, I love him to death. He is living with the disease, and he would say, why he would go visit places, and he'd say, you have all these little memory boxes, and you've got all these photos of everybody in my family, and he says, but I need to know who's taking care of me today. Who are the people in my world now? Yeah. So there's many different ways to look at this and to use photographs, and I think that this is a brilliant way to be able to have discussions and just relax, and be together. Right. I love the pictures in this book. They just elicit emotion. In every scenario. And there's one here with a little girl in pink with her hands up and her eyes wide and her mouth wide open, like, oh my, and I mean, you just cannot, you just like, what's she thinking about? What do you think she saw? I mean, you can go down so many different paths. There's a boy in here with his arms crossed, and again, just kind of a frown on his face and not looking too happy. And, another one, somebody getting a phone call but just looks excited. I mean, they all elicit a story that anybody can tell, because all of our perceptions are different yet equal in terms of their value, and I think that's one of the things that I really like. The other thing that I wanted to ask that I found interesting is you have the pictures in various positions on the pages. And so, typically every photo would be just centered in the book. And these are purposely not. Can you tell us, and they're not all the same size, they're some of them are cut out and, have different backgrounds. Can you tell us why you decided to position things and I guess, pick the pictures that you did?
Sure. Well, I'm going to start with the fact that I used children, and there is an infant in there. In the book, and then there is a picture of a early 20s-year-old young man. And I chose children because children, I feel, are fairly universally regarded by most everybody, and it brings back when you see a child, whether you're in the shopping mall or you're at a family dinner where there is a small child, don't we all sort of automatically respond to the child, to the liveliness of the child, and because their emotion is so natural and free-flowing and unguarded, whereas as we all grow older, we realize that, we have to behave such and such in this situation. And so children have a very spontaneous energy to them that I think all of us in our bodies, whether we can say it or not, remember what it's like to be a child and how free it was. So children is the main subject, and as far as the strategy of placement, first of all, there's no words in the book, Lori, on each of the pages. I'm sure you noticed that as you looked at each of the pictures. And I did that so that, as you mentioned, that each picture could have its own story. There is no right story, to each of the pictures or the pages. And as far as how I placed them, and this goes back to my sensory integration learning and training, is that, and we all know this, we just don't necessarily haven't been taught, about this, but, when you are learning, you need novelty and you need to have repetition, and so each of these pictures is placed on the page in a different way so that the brain, first you're going to look at it, and your brain's going to go, the picture's not, and this is not a conscious thing, but you go, the picture is not where I expected it to be. I have to pay attention to where it is on the page and how is it different. On the second page in my book, there's a picture of a toddler, and I purposely omitted part of his lower lip so that unconsciously, again, the brain goes, there's something missing. And so as a person with Alzheimer's and dementia progresses with the disease process, they have less ability to concentrate and to pay attention to whatever's in front of them. And so I made sure that I put enough novelty in terms of placement on the page, color, subject, age, size, so that again and again as the page is turned, the brain is responding to the uniqueness of each page, and it's staying awake and it's paying attention. And I did find, I do have research in the book in the back, I did find that on average, and this was over a group of people that were anywhere from maybe from early onset into later stages, but probably about 15 minutes is about the most that any one individual stayed focused in the book. But the prize of the book, though, is that you can pick up the book and start at any other page at any given time when you recommence sitting with the person who you're talking with, and I think that pretty much says about why the strategy of I think that this is where people can relate to it, is that if you are listening to somebody who's speaking monotone and doesn't have inflection in their voice, or they're speaking very softly, most of us lose our ability to really focus on what that person is saying. They sort of lose us. So likewise, in this book, visually, I've created a situation where there's not going to be visual monotone.
Okay. Well, like I said, I think it's just was really interesting when I picked the book up for the first time because, I looked at the pictures and I was like, well, that's interesting. Why are the pictures placed there? I know there's a reason, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Why aren't they all just big, and take up the whole page? But it does. It makes you think. It makes you process and steps you back a little bit. And for me, look a little deeper too, as to I knew there was a meeting, but I didn't know what.
Right, right.
And so, I think it's very, very interesting how all of those things come into play, with this. Now, who would you recommend this book for? Would you see it just for professionals to use, or other families, or both? Or
well, when I first made it, Lori, I was very selfishly making it, as a gift to my mother, for my mother and myself. And so when I had it published, I really wanted the population that would purchase it the most would be the family members. And it can be anybody from, you're buying it for, say, the husband for the wife, or for the adult children, such as myself, when I go visit with Mom. But it certainly would be very appropriate for grandchildren to use with their grandmother or their grandfather. Certainly it's very appropriate for the professional person to use. I mean, whether you're a speech therapist and want to encourage what I have coined phrased as automatic language, or the recreational therapist who might use, I made suggestions in the back of the book for how it can be used in groups. And one thing that I have found, though, although I think it's very appropriate for all the different populations that I've mentioned, what I have come to learn when I have been a vendor at different conferencing events is that when you're in the middle of coping with and learning about Alzheimer's and dementia that your loved one is experiencing, you're grieving. You're grieving because you're losing the loved one in the way that you had always known them, and you are less able to take in new information about how to cope. And so what I have found is that the people who are first going through this don't quite understand how the book works or why it works. And so I have found that the professionals are the people that end up teaching the family members and are a resource for them. So the work that you're doing today by having me on your blog radio show is wonderful because I can speak hopefully to a good cross-section of professionals as well as family members and be open and honest. And I understand. I really do. That when you're going through the disease, and if you're not in a medical field, you just don't understand exactly what's happening to the brain. And there's another part of you that just doesn't, quite frankly, want to understand because it's so devastating. My father was in denial for quite a long time while my mother was progressing with the disease, and so I don't know that he would have even been open to using the book because, of course, Mom was normal, or she should be. So, anyways, there's a good cross section as far as who can use the book and how it can be used.
One of the things that I would like to see happen more, and I don't know, what your perception is, but my perception is that a lot of professionals don't share their everyday tools with families once they're, when people are placed. And I just think that would be so beneficial for families in terms of visits and if they're coming in or if they're taking people out, just to help people, find that comfort because they don't know what to do. They're just so lost at how to interact and what to say and do I accept this for what it is, or do I correct them? And there's just, I don't see those conversations. Do you, with professionals, with families? I guess as much as I'd like to see them.
Yeah, I can only speak to the situation, the environment that my mother was in, and I know my father paid a pretty hefty monthly price for her to be living in this assisted and living situation. I found that more often than not, and I think this is probably true pretty against a pretty cross section of professional situations and settings, is that there's so much paperwork that is required of these immediate caregivers, and then there are those individuals who don't get paid very much, so they don't have much motivation to put extra time in above and beyond what they've been tasked to do, which is taking them the individual to the bathroom or making sure they're at the dining room table in time for their lunch meal, and so unfortunately, I find that, at least I found that when I would go to see my mom, that Mom would be sitting in a chair by herself, and I would say that probably it was the aides that had a little bit more flexibility with their time that could be seated with some of these individuals that were, seated in the cafeteria or the dining room area. But the nursing staff needs to, they're the leaders, they're the directors of their programming, and so they do need to empower, whether it's the, worker that works at the community, or whether it's a family member that comes in and they can notice that they're having a hard time coping. But, how do you resolve that? How do you end up allowing so many people across our country, across our world, to know what the resources are? That's where the work of your radio blog, Lori, is helping. Because there's only so many hours in a day. But it is very frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Yep. Let me just see. I think we might have a caller in. I'm not quite sure. Like I said, my back room is being a little goofy here in the radio, so let me see.
Okay.
Do I have a live caller on the line that would like to make a comment? You are live right now on the show. Nope, it doesn't look like it. Okay.
And Lori, before so that I don't omit this, because, the Alzheimer's Association that we all have in our states and in our cities, they do have wonderful resources for those folks that haven't ventured out of their comfort zone and to get support and help. I know my father, as much as we encouraged him to reach out to become involved in either a support group or the local Alzheimer's Association, he didn't. So I think it will probably take a couple more generations, before more of that happens across the board. But so I don't mean to say that there aren't good resources out there and that there aren't efforts being made. It's just that we're all at different stages and phases of learning about the disease and being able to embrace it.
Well, and I think that's a really good point. We can have all of the resources we want, but if we're not connecting with people to the level that's needed, then we're not being as effective as we could be. And I think that a lot of that has to do with not any one group or association by any stretch. It just has to do with the massive amount of stigma attached to this disease that we have to break through and break down and get people comfortable and not embarrassed, not ashamed, not fearful of what if they know. What if they know what I'm really dealing with here.
Right.
And I think that that's just such a spooky factor. I'd like you to touch a little bit more, because this is what is kind of cool with this book too, is you've done something different, but you've also shared the research data in a really simple format. What drove you to do that?
Well, the book worked with my mother and I, but how did I know if it was going to work with other people that had Alzheimer's and dementia? And because I, had full trust that my mother knew who I was, even when she couldn't say my name. I just felt that there was a spiritual level to our relationship and to our energy, and so the book worked with Mom and I thought, well, shoot, I can't put this out there for a bunch of other families and professionals if it's not going to work in the same way that it did for my mom and I. So, and I guess because of my my occupational therapy background and knowing that research is an important component to practice, a effective practice, it was sort of natural for me to think about the fact that, I can set up a simple research study, knowing that it wasn't going to be like anything like Einstein-like, but, be more in the behavioral observation. So I went to a local, to Raleigh, North Carolina, nursing home facility, to a memory care unit, and fortunately had someone help me gather individuals across the spectrum of the disease. So I had 13 individuals, and one of them was my mom. I put down studies as to how she responded to the different pictures, and so I sat with these individuals and basically, recorded, what kind of facial expression did they make when they saw the picture? What did they do with their hands? Did they initiate turning the pages? How was their body language when they were looking at the pictures? Did it seem like they were agitated, or were they calm and centered? Instead of using language, did they make vocal sounds instead of saying something that was more recognizable? But and how long did they look at the pictures, and what was significant about this particular individual as to how the book either helped them or how they responded to it? And I put the research into the book so that, for a couple reasons, certainly a professional might, look at it and go, oh, that's very interesting data to understand. And then I thought, well, family members, even though research may not be something that they automatically, think about reading, I thought, well, it might give them comfort to know that their loved one is not that much different than some of these other people that had looked at the book. So a source of comfort. And what I learned, the biggest thing that I learned, Lori, was that, and I know this is a huge piece of your advocacy for individuals and families experiencing the Alzheimer's and dementia, is that you have a relationship, you connect, you socialize as much as you can, and how important that is. And so what I learned, and it was really one of the most pleasant experiences of putting this book together, was how important the individual ultimately, I think, felt when I sat down next to them and asked them if they would like to take time to look at this book with me. And they immediately gave me a positive sense that they would like to do that. If they didn't say yes, they just were very participatory. They immediately became engaged with what I was doing. And for those individuals who have a loved one or know of somebody who is more agitated and angry and more outspoken, I found that the individual who tends to be that way, it is harder to get them engaged because they're very distracted and their body wants to be someplace else, and so in the end, you have to honor where they are and, be as calm as you can be, so that they can do what it is that their body is having them do. And it is a hard situation. It does make it more challenging.
Okay. Wonderful. Now, I do think that we've got somebody on the line again. Let me see here. Got a 646 number on the line. You're live and on the air. Do you have a question or a comment for Rae-Lynn?
Lori? Hello?
Uh-huh. Yes, this is Lori.
Hi, it's Lisa Hirsch. I just tuned in a little late, so that's why I haven't made a comment. And for some reason, when I went on, I couldn't get it on my internet, so I called in. But where I've tuned in, I just like the one thing, and it's there are resources out there. And the only comment I was going to say, I happen to live in a big city in New York, and I have heard people, I go to a support group, and I've heard people say that even in New Jersey, and someone else moved out to San Francisco and came back and said that the support from the Alzheimer associations weren't as great. They couldn't even find some groups. And since I had it all surround me and it was right here at my doorstep, it was like I was surprised hearing that. So even though there is support out there, it's in some ways limited depending on where you live.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yep. And I know, for funding, things are, they struggle. Just like, everybody does with budgets and things. And we really need more money poured into this so that we can get the help that people need in all areas. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of the grassroots things have started to crop up, too. And as more people get involved with this, like you, Lisa, you wrote your book. And you can go ahead and give a plug for that. I'm doing what I'm doing because I was touched by the disease, the power of this disease, and the passion that I think that it ignites in all of us to help the next guy is going to make some massive difference in the world because we're saying we all need help. And I found this that worked for me. I'd like to share it, with you. And so, Lisa, do you want to give a plug for your book here real quick, too, since you called in?
Sure. Yeah, it's My Mom, My Hero, and it's available on Amazon as well as Kindle. And I also have a blog that's very active, which can be found on Facebook, and that's My Mom, My Hero. And Ray, like I said, I tuned in a little late, but I congratulate you on what you've done, and it does amaze me, and I get comments from my book, but I get so much more from my blog, and it is amazing how many people really, as much resources as we think that's out there, that they have no one to talk to, and they relate to, I know they relate to what I say, and it's like, I don't want to say misery loves company, but it's like they feel a comfort that they're not there alone. Like, wow, what you just wrote about is something that I'm going through with my mother, or it could be my father. I find a lot more mothers. I don't know if it's called My Mom, My Hero, or if it's more of a female disease. I mean, I know they say. So that was like something I wanted to add in.
Wonderful.
Well, I know that when I was going through this process in my mid-40s with my family, my peers were not experiencing the aging continuum in their own personal life, and I'll tell you what, I did feel alone. And so but I was not angry at these friends who didn't say, well, how is your mom doing, how are you doing, because they just didn't know. So, when you said it, misery loves company, I think that it goes to the saying that, until you've been through something, you don't quite understand and the human condition knows that we need people that understand.
And even though I made that comment, and Lori knows me a little better than you, because we're just speaking for the first time, is I come from really a more positive, I want to use the word upbeat, to it. I come from being thankful for what I now still have with my mother, and I'm very fortunate that I've been in this place. It's already 9 years for us. And yes, she's getting a lot worse, but it was like when I just came back from seeing her in the nursing home that she recently entered, I was still thankful that she knows me or knows my name, maybe not every second, and that there was still she's able to walk, in a walker and speak, and she's as far gone as she is. I know what can lie ahead. Not every single person gets that bad,
right.
But it's and so I didn't, when I said misery loves company, it wasn't coming from it's I think it's, if people can embrace, I think a lot of, and I hear this in my support group, and I hear this from numbers of people, like, I want my old mom back,
right.
She's
right.
not the same. Well, life's not the same, and like, can you grasp what you have now? Because there will be a time when there won't be anyone you can hold on to or touch their hand, and so that's pretty much where I come from.
Right. Well, and people are grieving. They're grieving because they're losing what they knew, and so that's where people need help to be empowered to understand what their process, that they are grieving, and that it's a normal part of the process. And then, what tools can I have that will make it a more of a positive situation and take advantage of what is, not what isn't, in terms of skills.
Very interesting when you say that word grieving. When I first started a support group, and my support group leader, whose mom and dad died of Alzheimer's over 20 years ago, when it was a disease less understood, and she told me that I was grieving, and I got really upset. What do you mean I'm grieving? My mom isn't dying, and this was almost 3 years ago, and I was able to accept that, which hopefully makes the process easier.
Right.
Wonderful.
It's hard to imagine. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead and finish, Rae-Lynn.
I think that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Lisa, but I think that we think of grieving as being a process that happens when someone has died. And your response was, my mother isn't dead. But as we grieving is attributed to the process of losing something, whether it's that the person has died, or that they're losing who they had been and were able to do. And as we all age, we go through a letting go and a grieving process, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Very true.
Right. Very true. Absolutely.
Very true.
But it was hard for me to understand, but you understood why I didn't.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and some of it is just explaining. I mean, that is something I think that almost has to be explained, because that is where everybody goes right away, is, what is the definition of grief? And really this is multiple losses, going through this disease. And it is something that we have to kind of retrain ourselves to look at, that it is about that process, but it's not a one-time thing. And so important differentiation. Well, thank you for calling in, Lisa. I always appreciate your comments so much. So, and if people are interested, they can follow Lisa on her blog, My Mom, My Hero, or, go to Amazon and get the book. So thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Lori, for everything you do. You know how I feel about you. Okay, have a great day, ladies. Bye-bye.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye. Rae-Lynn, what is the one thing before we close that you would, recommend to people? What's the one kind of tip for people who are dealing with dementia that you would like to tell our listening audience that it's important to understand about a person who's got dementia?
I have to say that although the person is changed or changing before your eyes, they are still inside who they always have been. And so integrity and honor are two words that pop up into my head that apply for all of us in our world and in our day-to-day interactions with people, but in particular with the person who is afflicted with Alzheimer's and dementia, because they cannot always speak for themselves as to how they're feeling. So I think it's very important that we recognize that there is a spiritual connection, and that all of us know that we can feel each other's energy. You can tell if somebody is providing you unconditional love, or if they are angry at you. You can feel that in your day-to-day interactions. And so why can't a person who has Alzheimer's or dementia why would they be any different? So you have to honor that core part of that person, that they know how you are really feeling, and to love them unconditionally, and allow them to feel that each time you're with them.
Wonderful. Well, I can't thank you enough for spending this hour with us, and I have to say that I loved one of many of the phrases that you gave us and insights, but you talked about your book, Let's Look Together, as a way to have a failure-free conversation, and I just thought, that is just so nice, because there is a lot of fear of right or wrong, and what do I say, and how do I do this? And I just thought, when you said it just in me, even though I feel like I know how to communicate with my mom, and she's in her very end stages where this wouldn't even be effective really with her, it just gave me this peacefulness when you said that phrase, failure-free conversation. And I would encourage our audience to look at all interactions as failure-free. It's not a win or lose thing. It's just about engaging in that. So, What's the best way for people to order your book?
Well, you can go to my website, which is, of course, www. and then it's letslooktogether.com, and there is a link on the home page that will bring you to the publisher, who is Health Professions Press, and Amazon also does sell the book, so you can purchase it there as well. And depending on where you live and what the Alzheimer's associations have in their resource library, you may also be able to purchase a book there.
Okay, wonderful. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for being with us today. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I really encourage people to get this book, Let's Look Together. I think it can be a really powerful tool for, again, both professionals and families, just to have an easier conversation and to get back to the joy of connecting and just engaging one another. So thank you, Rae-Lynn. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And again, I appreciate your time and all of your efforts to get this book together and out to the world. I think it's something that's greatly needed. So appreciate all that you do. Okay, bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm going to go ahead and kind of go into our mid-program highlights right now. And before I pull in our next guest, which I think will be a wonderful conversation as well, our last radio show was an open mic for end-of-the-year reflections, but I also want to point out that on the 24th, right before Christmas, we had Teepa Snow on, and that's a show I think that you'll really want to go back and listen to if you haven't already. That is in our archives. Our next show, as always, will be next Tuesday. And same time, same place, so just go ahead and mark that down on your calendar, and you can even ask, follow us and ask to be reminded when the show is coming up as well. Our last Dementia Chats, which is a webinar series that I do twice a month where I interview people with dementia, was on December 24th. Again, those shows are the second and the fourth Tuesday of each month. And in that session, we talked about technology, its usefulness and its affordability, and some of the traps between both of those. We also talked about helping those that are isolated by dementia, not just the person diagnosed, but also their care partners as well, and people's plans for the new year. And we had a nice conversation with people calling in on that. Our next Dementia Chats will be January 14th. That's at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central, and that would be noon Pacific Time. On the blog highlights, there was, I'm really pushing this show, and it's hitting Broadway. My Mom Has Four Noses. If you have an opportunity to see it, you want to see it. It is an incredible performance. It's a one-person show by Jonathan Brooke, and she is an amazing singer-songwriter, and the way she performs this story, it gets you laughing and crying. And even if you have not been touched by dementia, you will be touched by how you've been cared for or cared for somebody else in your life. It's just I've never been to anything quite so profound with the conversations that have happened long after the show. So I'm really excited that she's going to be on Broadway at the Duke Theater starting, I think it's February 14th. But on January 2nd, there's an article on the blog that talks about that. Michelle, who's our next guest, wrote an article. She writes an article typically every Sunday evening, and this last one on the 5th was on shadow boxes. And then I just wrote an article a little bit late about celebrating life every moment we get. And that will give you also a little update on kind of my mom's status, who's in hospice, and her birthday was January 1st, and how we celebrated that day and what came out. We were really quite blessed with the time she was able to connect with us was pretty rare. Even in her end stages, typically if she can stay awake and kind of connected to us 20 minutes out of a 2.5-hour period, and this birthday she was with us pretty much the whole time. It was absolutely a blessing and fascinating. And there's some pictures and stuff to go with that too, in case you're following our story. Again, I want to give a shout out about the Purple Angel. Anybody who wants to get involved with that, very easy to do. Just I'm one of the ambassadors for the Purple Angel. Just shoot me an email and we can get you information how to use this new global symbol. Same if you're interested in starting to become a dementia-friendly community or business. I would be glad to talk with you on how to get that started and what all that takes. For those of you looking for an Alzheimer's Association somewhere in your area, I recommend you Google Alzheimer's Disease International. There you will get all the information to all the Alzheimer's associations around the world. So many of us are long-distance caregivers, and it's just a nice way to be able to see the connectiveness. They also have information on the Global Summit. Mark Wortman, the executive director, is going to be with us on the 28th talking about that Summit, talking about their upcoming conference in May, talking about a nutritional study that's out with nutrition and dementia. So be an interesting conversation that you might want to partake in. The Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, a wonderful organization that really takes a holistic approach to the disease. If you have not checked them out, I highly recommend that you do that. And then, of course, there's the Lewy Body Association, the Frontal Temporal Lobe, the National Aphasia Association for those that are dealing with, specific instances and diagnosis of dementia. It's really nice to be able to talk with an organization that knows and understands the specifics in which you are dealing with there. And then last is my kind of social connection pieces that I think is important for us to talk about, such as Music First with Choral Health, Puzzle with Me, and Jiminy Wicket. Just really simple ways to be able to go ahead and connect with people and have fun. We should all be having fun and not losing our relationship to this disease. So with that, let me go ahead and introduce our next guest. Michelle Remold is a graduate from the University of Northern Iowa with her degree in gerontology and social science and family studies. She's working on her master's degree in aging studies and nursing home administration at the Minnesota State University of Mankato. She has interned for the Faribault Area Senior Center and the Alzheimer's Association, the East Central Iowa chapter, and she's also interning here with us at Alzheimer's Speaks, and I just feel so blessed to have gotten to know Michelle. She is really quite a special gal. She recently just accepted a position as the administrative coordinator at the Northfield Senior Center. And so welcome, Michelle. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Still a little chilly here, but it's nice to see the sun out at least. Mm-hmm. How cold is it where you are?
Right now I think it's a -2.
A -2. Yeah, so that's kind of warm for us compared to what it's been. Well, Michelle, I would love to get your perspective, because I always find it fascinating when young people are interested in this field. So can you give us a little background as to, what drew you into this field?
Yep. My grandfather was actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's when I was about 8. He passed away when I turned 17 so I spent a lot of time visiting him up on his dementia care wing and just in the nursing home in general. And I always loved spending time with the residents up there and seeing them smile when my brother and I would walk in. And so when I actually had to choose a degree, my mom mentioned it to me, and I could see myself volunteering but not really doing it as a career until I started getting more involved with the curriculum and then volunteering and stuff. I discovered that I actually did, in fact, have a passion for working with older adults and especially being around those with Alzheimer's and dementia. So I figured it would be a good area for me to kind of sneak my way into, and I think it's an area where more and more people are going to be needed.
Oh, definitely more and more people are going to be needed. That's for sure. Now, one of the things that I found fascinating was that you created a memory trunk program at the University of Northern Iowa, and I would love for you to share that with our audience. What is a memory trunk, and how did that come to be?
Yep. Actually, I put it together while I was interning at the Faribault Area Senior Center. When we are assigned internships, we are required to come up with a program that can be utilized by whichever place we are working in, so either something that they might want to use down the line or something they're working on. So they gave me the option of stuff that I could work on, and one of them was memory trunks. And so I kind of researched a little bit on it. They gave me some materials, but pretty much told me to run with it and see what I could come up with. So what it was is I ended up taking trunks, or depending on the theme, I had backpacks, picnic baskets and stuff, and they were all, everything that the stuff was in was based on the topic that I chose to talk about. I think I ended up with about 12 different themes, and I would put visual aids in there that they could pass around, or that would eventually become talking points for the program, and it was specifically geared towards Alzheimer's and dementia. I had a fellow student. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask, when you say visual aids, can you give us some examples?
Yep. So for the farm theme, we had twine. We had different farm animal toys, a cow, a pig, chickens. We had barns. We had old photos. We went through old magazines and stuff and found like outhouses and old farm equipment and stuff that would probably jog memories more than the stuff we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just kind of stuff that we could connect to their generation and make a connection that way. So especially with the farm theme, they had a lot of fun passing around cows and being like, oh, we didn't have this one. We had beef cows, or that kind of stuff.
Well, I bet you got pretty educated in the process of just hearing the stories coming out from people.
Yep.
That had to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the program is still going on in Cedar Falls. When I graduated, our associate professor of gerontology, Dr. Rae-Lynn Cebul, actually took the program over from me. I wrote her a handbook, and she has all of my trunks, and she's actually going out today to a facility and doing it. So it's kind of fun to hear what they're up to and how it's going down there.
Oh, very neat. Is that something that you would ever see expanding at all?
I think it has the potential to. When I first started it, Dr. Cebul actually put out a newsletter that just kind of mentioned us, and that I was training a group of students that would be specially trained to go out and do this program with people with dementia and Alzheimer's. And at first, our response was a little slow, but once different facilities started hearing about it, it spread really quickly. We actually had a couple of requests to drive like 3 hours to go present the program. Yep. So it spread really fast when we had the manpower to do it.
Oh, very cool.
It definitely has potential. Yep.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, because I just think that it's again, it's just another great important way for people to learn how to connect and to share stories or and even pull stories out of people, you know, to be able to get some of that rich history and that conversation that so many times is lost, you know, in the process there. What was I going to say? Now, with these, you had mentioned, you know, what are they stored in? Does it depend on the theme in terms of what the trunk looks like, or are the trunks all the same, or is it just plastic containers with stuff in them that you pull out, or how does that work?
Nope. Originally it started, we were going to try to actually use physical trunks, which were proving kind of difficult to come by. So I actually built one that the senior center has in town here. They use that one that has the farm theme in it. But then as we started developing them for the picnic theme, we were like, well, why use a trunk when we can have a picnic basket? So we had a couple people who donated picnic baskets for that. The school theme we put in a backpack. When we did like holiday stuff, we would maybe use like a Christmas stocking, or I would try to do gift bags or something if I couldn't find something. So if we were doing like birthdays, I would try to find a big birthday bag and put everything in there. So I try to adapt it to what we were doing, but we had a few that I ended up just putting into just like a plastic container because I couldn't find a corresponding container to put them in. But
Sure. Did you ever do anything sports related at all, like with bats and balls and or
we did.
What?
Yep. Nope. We did out childhood games, and so we did sports, and then we had like Red Rover and that kind of stuff. And they were like, we never played those, but we played these, and so it was kind of fun to be like, well, I don't know what that game is, and have to figure out what they were playing, because we had a little bit of a gap in games, but it was fun.
Very neat, very, very, and how exciting to know that that's still going forward and still in use. That's really, really exciting. Well, congratulations on putting that together and sharing that. I think that's absolutely fabulous. If somebody wanted to kind of start their own trunk program, what would you recommend that they do?
I would definitely get in contact with different nursing facilities, and I would also, if you have a theme or something, we learned pretty early on that we couldn't stick to our discussion points all the time, so it's really important to be flexible and just kind of let them talk about whatever comes to mind. We had some of our best discussions when we went off topic for a while and just talked about whatever they were talking about. And so I think that was our most important, my number one rule for my group of students was I don't care what they're talking about, but don't interrupt them. And we had a lot of fun just kind of learning more about them and stuff that way.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's a good point for all of us to remember that it's not about being right or wrong. It's not correcting. It's listening and engaging and appreciating the conversation as a whole for what people want to do. Well, very cool, very cool. Now, you decided, you've done a couple of different internships, and I'm just interested, if you wouldn't mind sharing, because we might have some young listeners out there, what made you decide to do an internship, and what have you gotten out of doing them?
Yep. The first one that I did at the Faribault Area Senior Center was actually a requirement of graduation. We had to do, I think it was 6 assignments, and so that one I did because I had to, is what it started out as, but I actually still keep in touch with them and volunteer there a lot. The Alzheimer's Association one, I was on the board for our Quest to Unravel Alzheimer's scavenger hunt on campus, and was approached by their director, and she was wondering why I had never applied before for their internship. And it was getting around graduation time, so I figured, well, one more won't hurt, and just kind of see what the Alzheimer's Association is all about from an inside view. And so that one, it was just, I helped plan a couple of the Walk to End Alzheimer's and stuff, so it was just interesting to see that end of stuff. And then with you, I saw it on the news and was just kind of intrigued by what it was, because I'd never heard about it before. And I really like Alzheimer's Speaks mission, so I decided to contact you. And I don't know, overall I just like being able to use my knowledge and skills while expanding my knowledge and skills at the same time.
Okay.
It kind of goes hand in hand, I guess.
Were you apprehensive at all when you first started, any of your internships? I would imagine, a lot of times when you start a new job or you go to a new group, there's that apprehension. Any tips for people who might be thinking about doing, an internship or volunteering out there to help ease some of that anxiety?
I would get to know the people you're going to either volunteer or intern with. I was lucky when I went to the senior center, they interviewed me, and one of the people actually set up respite care for my grandfather when he was still living at home, and so she knew my family pretty well. And but we did an interview. I visited a couple more times before I actually started my internship, so we were talking long before that, and I think that definitely helped because I kind of knew who I was talking to. And that kind of stuff. And the Alzheimer's Association, I spoke with them previously, and I met with you before we decided to do the internship. So I think it just kind of helps to get to know who you're thinking about doing stuff with.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's good on both sides to figure out expectations and what's going to work. Is it going to be comfortable? Because I think sometimes people think, oh, they're going to make me do stuff I can't do, or I don't want to do, or I don't have time to do, or the times or days aren't going to work. And just to be able to have those conversations, I think is very, very important to be able to do with that. So. Well, wonderful. Is there anything that you would add to get others interested in working in the field? What have you gotten out of it? How is it, given you, either impassioned you or, just given you peacefulness to do what you're doing?
Yep. I don't know. Like I said before, there's definitely a growing need, especially with the baby boomers getting up there in age. But I also find it to be incredibly rewarding. It's kind of like I kind of compare it to working with kids. They're always happy to see you, and I don't know. I guess growing up, I've had the experience of just talking with them and whatever they are talking about. But yeah, I don't know. I absolutely love it. I think everyone thinks that it takes someone patient to do it, but I think it just kind of takes time to kind of learn how to communicate with them and what the best methods are for that. And so, and it's also fostered quite a few intergenerational friendships. My brother and I used to go visit a person at the nursing home when after my grandma got out from rehab because we didn't have any family, and so we'd go up whenever we were on breaks and stuff, and we'd visit him, and my brother would be playing video games with him and stuff, so it's just kind of fun to get to know people.
Yeah, it's that I remember just the other day I stopped up at the nursing home and my mom was in bed, and so I was visiting with her there, and then I went down to the nurse's station, and before I went into the nurse's station, I, kind of zip through and kind of say hi to everybody as I'm going. And one woman was kind of sitting in her wheelchair alone. Everyone else was kind of in the living room area, and she was still in the dining room area, and she called me over to her, and she just had this huge smile on her face, and she just grabbed my hand. And she just had this twinkle in her eyes, and she was just so precious. And she says, oh, thank you for coming. We all need you so much. You have no idea what your visits do. Nobody visits us. This is just, God sent you, and she's just tapping my hand and holding it. And it was just like, oh, she's just making my heart just melt, And I really didn't do anything except say hi to a few, people, and let them know that they're worthy, worthy of attention, and that they matter. So it's just really small things, but the gifts that you get back, I think, are just absolutely enormous, and so many times I think overlooked in terms of the importance of just making those connections with people. It's just absolutely incredible. What do you have some visions of where do you want to be in 5 years in the field? What have you thought about where you kind of want to land? Have you scoped that out at all, or?
I have a little bit. I always say my dream job. We went into an adult daycare center as one of our places. We did a memory trunk program, and right now I would absolutely love to run one. I think it would be a lot of fun. But right now my goal is just kind of trying to find a niche somewhere working with people with Alzheimer's and dementia where I could have a lot of one-on-one contact and get to make those connections on a daily basis. And so I know, I think the seniors, working at the Northfield Senior Center will kind of be a good step in that direction and maybe give me some more ideas on where I can go from there.
Well, that'll be great. I know that you, in your bio, you had noted, I think, that you were going for your master's in nursing home administration. And so I didn't know if you were leaning towards going that route in terms of...
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about switching back over to social work and then having gerontology be my emphasis, because after taking the nursing home administration class, I decided that probably was not really where I wanted to be focusing, so I'm still working on seeing how I can switch over.
Yeah, a lot of budgets and kind of different focus on crunching numbers versus meeting with people, and the multitasking. Yeah, it's really the running of the business side can be very different. A skill set and ability to get, I guess, satisfied and find your rewards, in that sector on that. So, okay, what have you found the most rewarding? Is there a story you can tell us about engaging with the older population or people with dementia that just kind of melts your heart and stands out? Do you have one or two stories you can share with us?
I do actually have one, and it stands out probably the most to me from any of them. It was one of our first memory programs we did. We had a discussion beach ball, and I think it was actually our first dementia unit we were on for that. And there were a couple family members visiting, and the group they gave us wasn't the highest functioning group. So we were a little leery about it, and one wife was sitting with her husband, and she would answer the questions for him, and she's like, he just won't talk. You can pass it to him, but he's better just listening. And so we were getting ready to leave, and she asked us if we would pass the ball to them one more time. And so she caught it, and she read him the question, and she was like, I think Thanksgiving is probably his favorite holiday. And he looked at her, and he goes, no, my wife's birthday is my favorite holiday. And she started crying, and she was like, thank you so much for coming. She's like, he never talks. And she was like, I promise I didn't bribe him to say anything. And we were like, it was really heartwarming to see, that she got something out of it when she didn't think she would.
Yep.
But we've had a lot of people where we'll leave and they'll come over to us and give us hugs. It's like, thanks for visiting. It's so nice that you came. Or they would be like, well, do you want to come back to our room so we can show you stuff? And they just get so excited, and I think that's really what makes me want to work with them even more, is the ability to make their day when I'm not really doing anything. I might say hi or just stop in to talk to somebody, but they just love having company, and I'll take the time to visit. We actually went up to visit my grandma at the nursing home over Christmas, and there was a lady that came over, and she was just kind of lingering by me, and so I was just like, oh, hi. And she started hugging me, and she's like, oh, thank you for coming. And I was like, okay. And my mom's like, geez, you have so much patience, because she was like kissing my head and like patting me on the head. And I'm like, I don't know. So I did something that made her happy, and so I just let her go with it. And she eventually just walked away and was happy. And I'm like, you know what? If I can make somebody happy by just being there, then that's worth it.
Exactly. It can be such simple things that mean so much to somebody, especially when they're in a community and further along in the disease, and have less family and less people to connect with. And it's important for us to all keep in mind this could be somebody we know next, or it could even be us. And again, prior to the disease progressing, there's things that we can do as individuals, as businesses, as communities to make people with dementia feel much more comfortable in their environment. And sometimes it's just a smile on the face and a hello, or someone's struggling in front of you in the store making change. Most of us growl and get antsy and rock back and forth on our feet and look at our watch or our cell phones, we're busy people, and that irritation just disseminates instead of just, being patient and pleasant and think, that could be me someday. How do I want to be treated, and just treating people with, respect and dignity. A simple thing to say to do, but typically a hard thing for people to actually do in real life. on that.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you're dying to share with our audience at all?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
No,
well,
not at the top of my head.
Okay. Well, I so appreciate all you do for us on Alzheimer Speaks, and I would really recommend people check out her blogs Sundays. She just does a nice job. There's always great conversation generated by them, and many of them, it seems to be lessons that you've learned from just dealing with your own family experience with your grandpa. You've really been able to draw on that and teach us simple lessons in a very kind way, but share a story that kind of exemplifies why it's so important too. Of the blog posts that you've written, is there one that sticks out in your mind at all?
I think there was one. Let me take a peek here. I've gotten some good feedback. I have a couple people at work that read them. They actually watch for them.
Mm-hmm.
I know the one I wrote, "You're a Cow," got a lot of fun comments. Otherwise, I really liked, I think it's important for, the ones that I wrote, cherish little moments or the thought that counts, because it just kind of helps reiterate that don't take the small things for granted, because they're often the ones that mean the most.
Yep, exactly. It's been interesting watching the comments come in, because I also get them through LinkedIn that don't show up on the blog, or through my Google circles and things like that too. So not all of them chain on this, because we push them out in so many different directions. I know the one, "Remember the person, not the disease," got quite a few comments, and people were just amazed at what great advice that you have to give, and are so appreciative of you taking the time to share your knowledge with all of us. So if people want to get a hold of you, Michelle, is there a best way they can contact you?
Yep. You could actually email me. My the email I check the most is probably my UNI one. It's Remold, so REMOLDM @uni.edu.
Okay. Do you want to say that one more time slower for people in case they're...
Yep.
Okay.
It's Remold, REMOLDM @uni.edu.
Okay, wonderful. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your time with us today, and
thank you for inviting me.
The memory trunk. That was such a cool thing that you've created, and it continues to live and breathe. And again, all of your wonderful insights, and Northfield's going to be really lucky to have you with our program. So great. Well, you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and stay warm. It's going to finally warm up. I'm heading out to Florida here in a couple of days, but it'll still be nice to get out of here.
Yeah.
Even though we're going to hit the 20s maybe, and they said it's going to be like a 60-degree swing that we're going to have, so that'll be nice. Everybody will be running around in shorts, at 20 above here in Minnesota, because we're going to think it's warm. So yeah, interesting. Well, thanks again, Michelle, and again, always a pleasure to talk with you, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Okay?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.
Well, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show here. I am going to be pulling some information together on the Purple Angel. We're going to be adding a tab onto my website for people who are interested in getting information specific to how do they partake in the Purple Angel project? How do they get the Purple Angel to display? What do they need to do to get one of the stickers and things? So we'll be outlining that in terms of who you can contact and how that can all unfold for you. Again, if you haven't listened to the radio show on the 24th with Teepa Snow, I would highly recommend that you do that. She's just always such a joy to listen to. She also has some upcoming events, I want to say both in January and February, that she'll talk about too, that if you're in those areas that all have CEUs that you may want to venture into. And then next Tuesday we'll be back with our show time as usual. And on January 14th will be the new Dementia Chats webinar. If you missed the last one, that was on the 24th. Again, they're all recorded. That session covered technology and its usefulness and its affordability, issues that people had with both, and pluses and the positive things with that as well. And then how to help those that are isolated, both the care partner and the person struggling with the disease. And then our past blogs are, I think, always of interest to people with that. Wrapping up, again, Purple Angel Project, I'm really going to be pushing that hard. I would love to see all of our listeners, because you can be an individual or a company and display the Purple Angel. And the Purple Angel, again, is just the new global symbol for dementia. We want it to be as big and as powerful as the pink ribbon for breast cancer. And again, that was all started as a grassroots effort like this is, but it's really gaining momentum. If you are looking for an Alzheimer's association, anywhere in the world, go to Alzheimer's Disease International, and please check out the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. They have some really neat things to offer. Their meditations, they come from a more holistic approach and so you'll find things out about dietary, but they've got a great meditation that is extremely helpful for both the person diagnosed and the caregiver. The Lewy Body Association, the Frontal Temporal Association, and the National Aphasia Organization are also additional resources if you've got those specific entities that you're dealing with. If you're looking for a trial, again, the Alzheimer's Studies.com will get you to that third clinical trial. And I'd be amiss if I didn't say thanks to Custom A Design, who coordinates my website, which is always moving and shaking around as websites do. So I really appreciate all of their efforts as well. Until next time, you guys have an absolutely fabulous, fabulous week. And please keep warm. If you're in the East Coast, I would imagine our weather is coming your way. And man, it's chilly. It's really chilly. And not something that you want to fool around with at all. You want to make sure that you are bundled up and can stay nice and warm. Oh, last thing I do want to mention is that if you either have a service, product, or tool regarding dementia, we would love for you to be part of our resource directory, and that is very easy to do. There's no fee to be on there. Just go to alzheimerspeaks.com, click on the gold button that says Partnering Options, Share That You Care, and click on that, become a member, and then once you're a member, you can go ahead and sign up in various areas. So if you're a speaker, or you've got a book, or if you're a housing community, transportation technology, the list is quite extensive. Feel free to join us and let the world know that you're out there. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we will talk to you soon. Bye now.
Hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer's Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer's Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.